breakthrough that shook the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the failed quantum resonator for the third time that week. Her coffee growing cold as another attempt at faster-than-light travel ended in disappointment. The Olympus Research Station orbited Jupiter's moon Europa, its gleaming laboratories housing humanity's most ambitious project. For 5 years, the brightest minds on Earth had worked tirelessly to crack the secret of FTL travel, watching alien ships fold space around them, while humans remained trapped in their own solar system. The observation deck overlooked the testing chamber where the latest prototype sat silent and lifeless. Sarah pressed her palm against the reinforced glass, feeling the weight of countless failures. Every other species in the galaxy seemed to travel between stars as easily as humans drove cars, but humanity's attempts always ended the same way. The quantum fields would destabilize, the exotic matter would dissipate, and another 1,000,000-credit experiment would join the scrap heap. Commander Marcus Webb approached from behind, his heavy footsteps echoing in the corridor. The station's security chief had seen more failed tests than anyone, and his weathered face showed the strain of protecting humanity's greatest secret from the alien observers who watched their every move. He carried 2 cups of fresh coffee, offering one to Sarah with a sympathetic smile. "The engineering team thinks they know what went wrong this time," Marcus said, settling beside her at the observation window. His military background showed in his straight posture and careful words, but Sarah had learned to read the concern in his dark eyes. Something about quantum field coherence patterns being too rigid. They want to try a more flexible approach. Sarah accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping her fingers around the warm ceramic. Today marked the anniversary of her father's death, and the familiar ache in her chest made it hard to focus on equations and theoretical physics. Dr. James Chen had been humanity's first contact specialist, the man who negotiated Earth's place among the galactic community. His death in a shuttle accident had driven Sarah to dedicate her life to making humanity equal to the aliens who pitied them. Dr. Yuki Tanaka emerged from the elevator, carrying data tablets and wearing the excited expression that meant she had discovered something important. The neuroscientist had joined the project 6 months ago, bringing fresh perspectives on consciousness and quantum mechanics that traditional physicists had overlooked. Her long black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her lab coat showed evidence of working through the night again. "Sarah, Marcus, you need to see this," Yuki said, spreading holographic displays across the nearby table. "I've been analyzing the brain scans from our test pilots during the failed jumps, and there's a pattern nobody noticed before. Every time the quantum field begins to destabilize, the pilot's emotional state spikes dramatically. Not stress or fear like we assumed, but deeper emotions tied to memory and personal experience." The hologram showed brain activity patterns overlaid with quantum field readings, creating a complex dance of neural activity and exotic physics. Sarah studied the data with growing interest, noticing correlations between emotional intensity and field coherence that shouldn't exist according to conventional science. Human consciousness had always been a mystery, but these readings suggested something far more profound than anyone imagined. Captain Lisa Rodriguez reviewed her pre-flight checklist in the pilot preparation chamber, going through the familiar routine that preceded another test flight. The former military pilot had volunteered for the FTL program after losing her squadron to an alien pirate attack that Earth's slow ships couldn't prevent. Her brown eyes held the determined focus of someone who understood that failure meant watching more humans die while waiting for help that traveled too slowly through normal space. The test vessel Prometheus waited in the launch bay, its experimental quantum drive humming with barely contained energy. Unlike the sleek alien ships that moved like liquid metal through space, human spacecraft looked functional and industrial. The Prometheus was built for endurance and reliability rather than elegance, with multiple backup systems and redundant safety measures that reflected humanity's careful approach to dangerous technology. Dr. Sarah Chen made final adjustments to the quantum resonator, her hands trembling slightly as she thought about her father's last message. He had died believing that humanity would find its place among the stars, that their children would one day stand as equals with civilizations millions of years older. The weight of that hope pressed down on her shoulders as she initialized the test sequence, knowing that another failure might end the program entirely. Admiral David Reeves watched the proceedings from the command center, his gray uniform bearing decorations from humanity's brief but brutal conflicts with alien raiders. Earth's defense forces had proven effective in close combat, but their inability to chase fleeing enemies across interstellar distances made every victory temporary. The alien observers in the gallery made notes on their strange devices, probably calculating how long it would take for humanity to give up and accept their limitations. The countdown began as Sarah took her position at the monitoring station, surrounded by screens showing quantum field readings and exotic matter containment levels. Lisa's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional as she reported all systems green for the jump attempt. The Prometheus would attempt to travel just 50,000 kilometers, a distance that alien ships could cross in microseconds but represented humanity's greatest challenge. Yuki monitored the pilot's neural activity through quantum sensors, watching for the emotional spikes that preceded every failure. Lisa's brain patterns showed the usual mixture of excitement and nervousness. But something else lurked beneath the surface. The pilot was thinking about her lost squadron, remembering friends who died because human ships couldn't match alien speed and maneuverability. Sarah felt tears burning her eyes as she watched the quantum field begin to form around the Prometheus. Today, of all days, with her father's memory fresh in her mind, she couldn't bear to watch another dream die. The pain in her chest grew sharper as she thought about his faith in humanity's potential, his belief that they would overcome every obstacle through determination and ingenuity. Her grief poured out in silent waves, invisible to everyone except the quantum sensors. The impossible happened in the space between heartbeats. As Sarah's emotional anguish peaked, the quantum field around the Prometheus suddenly stabilized and began to resonate in perfect harmony. The exotic matter that had always dissipated now held together like it was responding to some unknown force. Lisa's shocked voice came through the speakers as the ship's instruments registered. Successful field formation for the first time in 5 years of testing. The jump itself lasted only seconds, but those moments changed everything. The Prometheus disappeared from normal space-time and emerged exactly where calculations predicted, its quantum signature burning bright against the cosmic background. Every sensor in the system screamed alerts as the impossible became reality, and Sarah collapsed into her chair as she realized what had happened. Human emotion had somehow powered their first faster-than-light journey. Marcus rushed to Sarah's side as she struggled to process the implications. The connection between her grief and the quantum field's stability couldn't be coincidence, not when Yuki's earlier research had shown consistent patterns between emotional states and field coherence. Humanity's consciousness worked differently than alien minds, and that difference might be the key to their own unique form of FTL travel. Lisa's triumphant laughter echoed through the station as she confirmed that Prometheus had completed a perfect jump and return. All systems showed green, the exotic matter remained stable, and the quantum field had held together throughout the entire process. For the first time since joining the program, she felt like humanity had taken a real step toward equality with their alien neighbors. The alien observers in the gallery exchanged urgent communications in their incomprehensible languages, their advanced sensors having detected energy patterns they had never encountered before. Sarah watched them through security cameras as they abandoned their usual calm demeanor and began transmitting data to their respective governments. Something about humanity's breakthrough had shaken civilizations that had mastered interstellar travel for millennia. Dr. Tanaka analyzed the neural activity data with growing excitement as she recognized the implications. Human consciousness could manipulate quantum fields through emotional resonance, something that no alien species had ever demonstrated. Their thoughts and feelings created measurable effects on exotic matter and space-time itself, turning humanity's greatest perceived weakness into their most powerful advantage. Admiral Reeves ordered the station sealed and all external communications suspended as he realized they had stumbled onto something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. If human emotions could power FTL drives, then Earth's billions of people represented an untapped energy source that dwarfed any conventional power plant. The implications were staggering and terrifying in equal measure. Sarah stood slowly, her mind racing through the theoretical framework that could explain what they had witnessed. Human neural activity operated on quantum frequencies that resonated with exotic matter, creating stable fields through emotional intensity rather than mechanical force. Her grief had provided the emotional energy needed to maintain field coherence, turning personal pain into the key to interstellar travel. Within hours of the breakthrough, encrypted messages began arriving from every major power in the galaxy. The unique energy signature of humanity's emotion-powered jump had been detected across dozens of star systems, and ancient civilizations were demanding explanations for technology they couldn't understand or replicate. Earth had crossed a line that separated primitive species from true galactic powers, and the consequences were already building like storm clouds on the horizon. The Prometheus engine, as historians would later name it, represented more than just another form of faster-than-light travel. It proved that human consciousness operated on principles that alien science couldn't explain, that emotions and feelings could bend the very fabric of reality to human will. For the first time since making contact with galactic civilization, humanity possessed something that made them unique rather than primitive. But as Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck, watching alien ships gathering beyond Jupiter's orbit, she wondered if their discovery would save humanity or destroy them. Power always came with a price, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when the species everyone had dismissed as emotional primitives suddenly became the most dangerous force among the stars. When feelings became weapons 3 weeks. After the breakthrough at Olympus Station, Ambassador Kethfer materialized on the command deck of Earth's orbital defense platform through a shimmering portal of blue energy. The alien diplomat belonged to the Synthesis Collective, a coalition of 12 species that had governed galactic affairs for over 50,000 years. His crystalline form reflected light in impossible patterns, and when he spoke, his words came from everywhere at once. "Humans of Earth," Kethfer said, his voice carrying harmonics that made human teeth ache. "The Galactic Council has convened in emergency session to address your recent technological development. The energy patterns you have created threaten the stability of subspace throughout this entire galactic arm. You will surrender all research data and cease these experiments immediately." Admiral Reeves stood firm, despite feeling like an insect facing a giant. The alien's presence filled the command center with ozone and static electricity, making every human nervous except for Dr. Sarah. Chen, she had spent the past weeks studying the quantum resonance patterns that their emotion-driven FTL created, and something in the ambassador's speech didn't match what she had discovered about their technology. "With respect, Ambassador," Sarah said, stepping forward despite the Admiral's warning gesture. "Our jump drives don't affect subspace at all. They operate through quantum foam manipulation using consciousness resonance. If your sensors detect instability, it's not coming from human technology." The crystalline being turned toward her with movements that seemed to bend light around his form. Ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of 1,000 civilizations studied Sarah, with interest that felt both curious and dangerous. When he spoke again, the harmonics in his voice carried undertones of uncertainty that had been absent before. "Impossible. Consciousness-based field manipulation is theoretical at best. No species has ever successfully merged emotional states with exotic matter control. Your primitive brains lack the complexity for such advanced applications." But even as he said it, Kethva's form flickered slightly, suggesting doubt in his own words. General Harrison Blake pushed past the Admiral with the aggressive confidence that had made him Earth's most decorated combat commander. His scarred face showed the results of fighting alien raiders with inferior technology, and his hatred for species that treated humanity as children was written in every line of his weathered features. Behind him came Dr. Michael Foster, a government scientist whose eyes gleamed with the kind of ambition that Sarah recognized as dangerous. "Maybe our brains are primitive," Blake said, his voice carrying the steel that had intimidated enemies across 3 solar systems, "but they're different enough to power drives that your ancient wisdom never imagined." "How does that make you feel, Ambassador? To know that the species you've been patronizing just became your equals overnight?" Sarah watched Kethva's reaction with growing alarm as she recognized signs of emotional resonance in the alien's energy patterns. The ambassador's crystalline form was actually fluctuating in response to Blake's aggressive emotions, something that should have been impossible according to every theory about alien psychology. If other species could be affected by human emotional fields, then their discovery was even more dangerous than anyone realized. Captain Lisa Rodriguez completed her pre-flight checks aboard the newly commissioned vessel Achilles, one of 12 ships equipped with second-generation emotion drives that Dr. Foster's team had developed. The military applications were obvious once engineers understood how human consciousness could manipulate quantum fields. Instead of requiring intense grief or pain, the new drives could be powered by any strong emotion, making them practical. For combat operations, engineer Tom Sullivan had spent sleepless weeks designing the emotional focusing arrays that turned human feelings into interstellar propulsion. His workshops on Luna produced drives that could amplify anger into devastating speed, transform fear into defensive capabilities, and channel love into the kind of range that made alien patrol fleets nervous. Each ship in the new fleet was crewed by pilots selected for their emotional intensity rather than technical skill. The first real test came when an alien blockade fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, their massive ships bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to asteroid fields. The Hegemony War Council represented 6 of the galaxy's most militaristic species, and their ultimatum was simple: surrender the emotion drive technology or watch Earth burn from orbit. Admiral Reeves authorized the deployment of humanity's entire emotion-powered fleet, just as Sarah Chen realized the terrible truth about their discovery. Her analysis of quantum field interactions showed that human emotional resonance didn't just power their own drives. It created ripple effects that influenced the consciousness of every sentient being within light years, turning human feelings into a weapon that could affect entire civilizations. The Battle of Seoul began when 12 human ships faced off against 200 alien vessels that had conquered species across half the galaxy. Captain Rodriguez felt her anger burning like a star in her chest as she remembered every friend lost to alien raiders, every human colony that had pleaded for help, that arrived too slowly through conventional space. That rage fed into the Achilles drive, pushing the ship to speeds that made it appear as a streak of lightning against the void. The alien commanders had expected conventional space combat with energy beams and missile exchanges at predictable ranges. Instead, human ships appeared inside their formations like ghosts, moving through folded space powered by emotions that alien tactical computers couldn't calculate. The first alien dreadnought died when the destroyer Hermes materialized inside its shield envelope and detonated its emotional resonance field at point-blank range. Sarah watched the battle from Olympus, stationed with horror as she realized what they had unleashed. Every human ship that used its emotion drive sent waves of psychic energy through subspace, affecting the minds of alien crews across the entire battle zone. Fear from human pilots made enemy gunners hesitant, while human determination strengthened their own allies in ways that defied every law of physics. The psychological warfare was more devastating than the physical destruction. Alien species that had dominated the galaxy through superior technology suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by emotions they didn't understand. Rage made their decisions impulsive, while human empathy created doubt about the righteousness of their cause. Within hours, disciplined fleets that had crushed 100 rebellions were falling apart from internal conflicts. Ambassador Kethver's crystalline form began to crack as the emotional resonance from the battle reached his ship. The ancient diplomat had witnessed the rise of every major galactic power, but nothing had prepared him for warfare that attacked the mind directly through consciousness manipulation. His request for immediate withdrawal showed other alien governments that even the synthesis collective couldn't handle humanity's new capabilities. Dr. Foster pushed his research team to develop even more powerful applications for technology. If human feelings could influence alien minds, then properly focused emotional fields could control entire populations. His proposals for planetary consciousness manipulation made Sarah physically sick, but government officials saw only the potential to end conflicts before they started, by making enemy civilizations simply give up. The victory at Seoul lasted exactly 3 days before Sarah detected the first signs of cascade failure in nearby star systems. Human emotional resonance wasn't just affecting individual aliens. It was creating instabilities in the quantum foam that connected all conscious minds across the galaxy. Every species was beginning to experience psychological changes as human emotions propagated through subspace like a virus. Captain Rodriguez reported strange dreams during her next mission, visions of alien childhoods and memories that belonged to species she had never encountered. The emotion drives weren't just broadcasting human feelings, they were creating connections between different forms of consciousness that evolution had never intended. Each jump brought humanity into closer mental contact with their former enemies, blurring the lines between friend and foe. General Blake saw only opportunity in the chaos as alien civilizations struggled with newfound emotions that their societies couldn't handle. species that had evolved beyond aggression found themselves consumed by rage, while predatory races suddenly experienced empathy that paralyzed their ability to fight. Earth could reshape the galaxy by simply continuing to use their emotion drives until every other species was psychologically dependent on human consciousness. But Sarah's deepest fears were confirmed when Dr. Tanaka's neural scans showed that human pilots were being changed by exposure to alien thoughts and feelings. The emotional resonance that powered their drives was creating a feedback loop that was slowly merging human consciousness with every other sentient species in the galaxy. They weren't conquering their enemies, they were becoming them. The solution came from the most unexpected source when Ambassador Kethba requested asylum on Earth rather than returning to his own people. The ancient diplomat's crystalline form had begun incorporating organic elements. As human emotions rewrote his basic physiology, creating a hybrid consciousness that belonged to both species simultaneously. I understand now why the Council feared you, Kethva said during his first meeting with the human leadership. His voice carried new harmonics that sounded almost human, while his crystalline structure pulsed with emotions he had never experienced before. You don't just travel faster than light, you make all consciousness faster than light. Every thought, every feeling, every dream becomes shared across species barriers. Sarah realized that humanity faced a choice that would define their future and the future of every species in the galaxy. They could use their emotion drives as weapons to dominate civilizations that had once looked down on them. Or they could find a way to control the resonance effects and create something unprecedented in galactic history. True understanding between different forms of consciousness. The answer lay in the original breakthrough that had started everything. Just as Sarah's grief had powered the first successful jump, collective human emotion could be focused to heal the damage they had caused to the quantum foam connecting all minds. Instead of broadcasting chaos, they could transmit harmony, helping alien species integrate their newfound emotions rather than being destroyed by them. The Great Resonance began 6 months after the first emotion drive test, as every human on Earth focused their consciousness toward a single goal, creating stability rather than chaos in the galactic community. The emotion drives were recalibrated to broadcast compassion instead of aggression, understanding instead of dominance, hope instead of fear. Captain Rodriguez led the first diplomatic mission powered by the new Harmony drives, reaching alien worlds in hours instead of months and carrying messages of cooperation rather than conquest. The psychological effects were immediate and profound as species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found themselves capable of true communication through shared emotional resonance. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck where everything had begun, watching ships from a dozen different species working together to establish the first truly integrated galactic community. Her father's dream of humanity finding its place among the stars had come true in ways he never could have imagined. They hadn't just joined galactic civilization, they had transformed it into something better. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in millions of years of interstellar conflict, that change promised hope rather than destruction. Humanity had learned that their greatest strength wasn't their ability to fight, but their capacity to feel, to connect, and to help others discover the power of emotions that had once been considered primitive weakness. As Ambassador Kethva often said in his new hybrid voice, carrying harmonics of both crystal and flesh, consciousness was not about intelligence or technology, it was about the courage to remain connected to others despite the pain that connection sometimes brought. Humanity had given that gift to the galaxy, and in return, they had finally found their home among the stars.